Hey, I'm Josh Brahm from Life Report, responding to a piece of listener mail we just got through the website. Listener's name is Ashlyn, and she writes, "Hey, I've watched your show a couple of times and it's really helped me a lot." Awesome. But recently I started talking with a pro-choice veterinarian that believes that life starts at birth. She says, "I'm only in high school and I don't really know what to do. I want to be able to talk to her without her not taking me seriously because I'm a lot younger and have no medical training. I asked her when she thought life began, excellent, and whether abortion should remain legal through all 9 months, also excellent. She replied she thought that just like cats, dogs, and other animals, life doesn't begin till birth, but that abortion should not be legal through all 9 months. I asked her why she thought life begins at birth, and if it isn't a baby until it's born, then why shouldn't abortion be legal through all 9 months?" Which is exactly the right question. It's like you're doing awesome. I almost, it's just, I'm gonna have to give the 201 response here. This is good. And then she finishes the email by saying, "I also went on to say about how some babies are born at 5 months and others at 9, and is a 7-month-old that has been born human. What about one that is the same age but still in the mother's womb?" Okay, awesome. So a few thoughts. I think that when someone says they don't believe that life begins until X, whether that's birth or whether that's 3 months or all the different things that people can put in place of that. I've seen a lot of things put there. You always want to start by asking a very important clarification question. And I've learned this from Steve Wagner at Justice for All. You always want to ask what they mean by the word life, because that can mean probably two different things. She might be saying that biological life begins at birth, or she might mean something more philosophical or metaphysical. In other words, she might mean that, I think the biological one is clear. Like, if that's what she means, then she literally means that this organism does not begin living biologically until birth. But then if it's philosophical, a lot of times when people say that, that's not what they mean. We think they mean biological, but instead what they mean is like valuable life doesn't begin until birth, right? Like technically it's biologically life, but it's not a person yet, or it's not valuable, doesn't have rights, that kind of thing. And you always want to clarify, because if they mean philosophical and you respond with the biological arguments, you're going to be talking right past them, and at best they'll be confused, and at worst they're going to be annoyed because you just strawmanned them accidentally, but you still did. So you clarify. Clarification questions are the key to not strawmanning people. Okay, so that's very important. So as I would clarify, I think at this point you probably even go back and just say, "Hey, I think it's possible that I actually misunderstood what you said about life beginning at birth. Okay, can I just clarify something? Because I want to not, I don't want to misinterpret what you said. I want to understand you." Like, no one's offended by people wanting to understand them better, so that's fine. And say, when you said life begins at birth, I'm wondering, did you mean biological life, or did you mean something more philosophical, like valuable life, right? And at this point, I'm going to assume that she says biological, because if she says it's philosophical, then that changes everything. That just means that she thinks it's a person at birth, and you can kind of go from there. Yeah, I think you can argue that, and at this point, if you go to prolifetraining.com with Scott Klusendorf's page, it's probably got a lot of the easiest kind of to read resources on the SLED argument, the SLED test, and you can talk about why you think people are valuable before they're born. If she says biological, though, I've got a few things I want to throw at you, because it sounds like you were kind of asking more for the biological arguments. First of all, biologically speaking, animal life does not begin at birth, all right? Which makes me think that maybe that's not what she's meaning. If she's a veterinarian, like, she probably has pregnant dogs come in and puts the things on her ears and listens to like the dog fetus heartbeat. I'm not sure if the fetus is the correct word there. I don't know what we call unborn animals, but I think sometimes the word fetus is used there. Animal fetus. Like, why would C be listening for a heartbeat if it's not alive, right? That seems odd. So C probably means philosophical, but just in case, C does mean biological. First of all, that's not true. Biological life begins before birth, even for animals. And I'm going to ask her why does C draw the line at birth? Why is it that C thinks birth is when life begins? And I've heard a few people respond different ways. I've heard some people say that it's all about location. As long as it's inside the mother's body, it's not alive. And then when it's outside the mother's body, boom, you now have a living entity. And then I'm going to ask a question that's similar to what you did. What about right before birth? Or right about halfway through birth? Is it alive then? Or is it half alive or half human if she goes philosophical? So that's, I'm going to ask about the criteria they gave, basically. If it's not a location thing, I think more likely what C thinks is that when you're born, you start using your lungs for the first time. This is pretty much the only thing that really changes biologically at birth, is you start using your lungs as opposed to the umbilical cord to breathe, or to take in oxygen. And so some people have said, and I think this is kind of ad hoc, but they'll say, so I guess, it's lung use. That's what makes you, and by ad hoc, what I mean is they want to say a person who begins at birth, and since basically the only biological distinction there is lung use, they'll say, okay, I guess it's lung use. I guess ad hoc. They kind of had their conclusion figured out ahead of time, and then just were trying to come up with an argument that gets them there, and that's bad reasoning. So they'll say it's lung use, and so usually what I say is, well, first of all, babies don't start using their lungs right at birth. That's kind of a misconception for people that have been in a labor and delivery room, right? And we talk about that a little bit in a recent the last episode we just published, the one with Scott Klusendorf and myself talking about biblical pro-choice arguments. It's like 143, I think. We spent a little time on that because one of the biblical pro-choice arguments is that life doesn't begin until you take your first breath, because Adam became alive when he took his first breath. So we talk about some of the kind of counterintuitive examples that you can use, and I'm not going to repeat all those now. So just go back, listen to that episode. It's kind of it's like an AC/DC switch going from umbilical cord to lungs, so that just doesn't seem relevant. Sometimes it's helpful to use kind of these counterintuitive examples. You used one, I think the premature baby example is a great one. Another one I might say is, it's like, if C believes it's not biologically alive, like, it's weird, not just listening to the heartbeat, but imagine looking at a third trimester baby on a 4D ultrasound. Remember, 4D is when it's not just the 3D, like the yellow ultrasound, but 4D means it's like video. It's not just a snapshot. It's taking place over time, so you're seeing kind of moving images. That's why some ultrasounds are 4D and not just 3D. So if you're watching a 4D ultrasound with a third trimester baby moving around and sucking its thumb and reacting to its environment the way late-term babies do, they respond to mom's voice in a different way than they respond to other people's voices, for example. I mean, that's been shown scientifically. They've done, they do kind of fetal psychology, tests. And I don't want us to make too much of that or act like babies can do that from the first trimester, because I'm not sure they can, but certainly late-term babies can do a lot of interesting things, and that's before birth. So C picked birth, so it gives you a lot of room to use these counterintuitive examples from mid-second trimester and third trimester babies that do things like C would have to say that baby's not alive, the one that's moving around and reacting to its environment on a 4D ultrasound. That's very counterintuitive. And if she kind of sticks to her guns, like, well, I just think it's birth. What I usually say here is, look, if your argument to stay consistent forces you to say that a baby that's moving around in the womb and reacting to its environment and reacting to mom's voice is not alive, you should probably abandon your view. Like this, you've probably got the wrong definition of life, because that seems amazingly counterintuitive. Which once again makes me think that maybe C doesn't mean biological, maybe C means philosophical. One other thing, C might mean something much more advanced. C might be trying, a little clumsily, but C might be trying to make the argument that your personhood, your valuable life, that you don't have rights until you're out of the womb, because C's making a bodily rights argument, an argument that women should have the right to unplug from their from anyone that's connected to them, using them for life support. This is kind of the Judith Jarvis Thompson violinist argument. And we've done a few shows on that. If you go to our website and just look up, search bodily rights, and on like every page except the home page on the left side now, there's a tag cloud where you can see all these tags. One of them is bodily rights. We've done several shows on bodily rights. We're doing some more in the future because we need to be talking about this. I don't think pro-lifers usually are very well prepared to talk about this adequately. But so you might be making a bodily rights argument, and so I'm not going to go into all the different things you would say there. I'm just saying know that and start prepping yourself in that argument. Lastly, if you really want to get deeper on this, Christopher Kazor's book, The Ethics of Abortion. Right now, it's my favorite pro-life book. It's a little bit heady. It's more it's a little deeper than some of the other, like Randy Alcorn's book, and even Scott's books. But it's awesome. And in chapter 3, he does a whole chapter on this idea that personhood begins at birth. And he takes a look at Marianne Warren's essay, where she basically argued that abortion should be legal through all 9 months, but not infanticide, or she tries to say but not infanticide. I think she fails at the non-infanticide part. So even writes a postscript trying to explain it, which I think harmed the essay more than it helped it. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. I think Kazor does a great job with that, and I just don't really want to repeat all of the things that he said in the book. Just get the book. It's well worth the $15-20. So let me know how it goes. I want to hear more about this conversation. If you got more questions, I'd be glad to respond to those. If he says something philosophical, there's probably some more things that could be said. But until you learn more, that's all I've got for you. So thanks for contacting me.